What is up, guys? Where's the stool? There it is. Hey. Can we give it up for our band one more time? That's one of my favorite songs, Brokenness Aside, because man, let's be honest, we are all sinners. So what's up for those of you that don't know me? My name is Heather, and I feel like I know a lot of you guys in here, but I am super stoked that you guys decided to come and show up and learn about who God is. And if you're new and I don't know you, I would love to give you a super awkward high five in the lobby. That'd be awesome. Well, you guys, I want to dive right in tonight because I have a lot to share with you, and we're just going to kick it off. Here we go. So last week, Justin kickstarted our brand new series called Build, where he left us remembering that the place that we are in is part of God's plan for our lives, and that Michigan is our mission. He took us on a journey through his hometown in Baltimore, even threw out some chips. That was pretty awesome. And he introduced us to a guy named Nehemiah in the Bible, and we got to learn about who Nehemiah was, where he came from, and we're going to continue on that journey studying who Nehemiah is. So what we found out last week was that Nehemiah is from Jerusalem. And along with a lot of other people, his Jerusalem was under attack. They were in war. And him and his family got transported to Persia, and he ended up serving a foreign king as a cupbearer. AKA, he drank poison, or drank wine to see if the wine was poison for a king. So we don't know if Nehemiah had ever actually visited Jerusalem. It could have just been part of a story that his parents told him to get him to fall asleep at night. But all I know, and all Nehemiah knew, is that Jerusalem was his home, where his heritage was, where his ancestors and his friends and his family came from. And we heard, and when Nehemiah heard that Jerusalem had fallen apart, that it was in ruins, that it burned to the ground, he had something deep inside of him. He wanted to go and fix it. And that's where we're going to pick up in the story today, where Nehemiah is making the decision to take action and go, to step out of his fear, step out of his doubt, his worry, his anxiety, and step up into what God had planned for him. So before I get started about talking about Nehemiah, I kind of want to ask you guys a really, really important question. Are you guys ready? Have you guys ever written a research paper? Right? Okay. That's my comment exactly. Research papers for me were like death, like real talk. I would literally have to isolate myself in my bedroom from the world in order to gather all of the information that I needed to write this paper. And I feel like I'd go on overload on this mission to study and figure out what my topic was. And when it come time to actually sit in front of my table, because I didn't have a computer back then, yes, I'm showing my age right now, and actually write it down, I would be paralyzed. I would not know the first sentence that I needed to put down. And I would be overwhelmed and stressed out. And what I wouldn't do is actually do it. I'd procrastinate until the very last minute. How many of you guys know that feeling? Ooh, dang, okay. Glad we're all in the same boat here. So maybe it isn't a research paper. Maybe it's a project that you have, or maybe it's your grades. Maybe your grades are struggling so much right now that it's easier to just forget about it, to sweep it under the rug, rather than putting in the hard work to get it up. You have too many missed assignments, you failed too many tests, and you are struggling right now. Or maybe it's a relationship you have. Maybe your dad or your mom or your siblings or even your friends, you have too many arguments, too many missed conversations, and you keep sweeping it under the rug and instead of taking action to fix it. These are all things, getting your grades up, writing a paper, healing a friendship, all things that take one step to get it into the right direction. So let's take this even further. Maybe you have dreamt of doing something absolutely incredible with your life, something completely out of the ordinary, extraordinary. But the idea of actually doing it, actually starting something that matters, completely paralyzes you. Some days it seems easier to hide away your dreams of doing anything out of the ordinary. And you look at your life and say, nothing extraordinary is going to happen with me. I'm a nobody. You look at yourself in the mirror and you put yourself down saying, I can't do anything. Well, let me tell you the cool part, you guys. This story that we're studying of Nehemiah could be the very thing that you need in order to start putting things into action. To actually believing that you are of value and of worth, and God is going to do something incredible through you. So I want to have this little disclaimer here because I do know for a fact that there are some students in here that are still wrestling with the idea of God. I want to let you know that is okay. You are welcomed here with open arms, and you are not required to believe in this moment, but do not tune me out because you don't think that the Bible is relevant to what you are going through today. This book right here has so much truth to what you're currently dealing with. And today we're going to talk about this guy who did some really big things, and he asked really big things in order to make big moves for God and his people. So now we're going to dive into God's truth. As you guys know, I keep talking about Nehemiah. I've said his name like 50,000 times already. Nehemiah wanted to take on a big task, and that was helping Jerusalem get back on its feet. He prayed and he fasted for months, calling out to God, and God laid it on his heart to get back to Jerusalem and build a wall. Nehemiah wasn't sure exactly how he should do this, but in the start of chapter 2, in this story, we see Nehemiah take action, and he takes a step in the right direction. So we're going to start off in Nehemiah 2, 1 through 5. Early the following spring, in the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, now we're talking about Nehemiah's talking, I was serving the king his wine. Basically, he's serving the king his wine because it passed the test of it not being poisonous, so now the king could actually drink it. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, you guys, Nehemiah is a slave to this king. So just the fact that the king is asking his slave about his feelings is a super huge deal. The king asked me, why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled. Then I was terrified, and I think this version says afraid. I was afraid. Nehemiah was afraid. How could he not be? He is a slave talking to a king about his feelings. This guy, I'm not sure if you guys understand the totem pole, but the king's way up here and the slave is way down here. This is Nehemiah. And he's talking about his feelings. But I replied, long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. The king asked, well, how can I help you? Once again, the king is asking his slave this question. And with a prayer to the God of heaven, Nehemiah sends up a flare prayer. And how many of you guys know what a flare prayer is? Okay. This is in that moment when you are struggling that you shoot up an instant prayer like, Lord, please help me. I am in trouble, or I need advice. I need you to deliver this message right now because I'm going to fall flat on my face. Kind of how I'm feeling right now, okay? Let's just be honest. So the flare prayer, Nehemiah sends it up with a prayer to the God of heaven. If it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried. So he's asking the king to send him away from his job to rebuild a city. Honestly, there's no doubt that this king was shocked by his request. He probably didn't know much about Nehemiah, other than the fact that once again, this guy tasted his wine to make sure that the king didn't drop dead. He was a lowly cupbearer in this king's eyes, and now he's asking to go and do construction? Okay, so the king actually agrees to let Nehemiah go, and here it keeps getting great, and this is only by God that this was able to happen. He lets Nehemiah go. He lets him bring friends, more slaves, so it takes more slaves off of the king's help list, and then Nehemiah is a G in this moment. Justin told me to say this. Nehemiah is a straight up G in this moment. He says, hey, so can you actually fund this project too? I need a letter to get me past some certain guards in certain cities, and I need the supplies because, let's face it, I'm a slave. I cannot afford to do this. And the king, once again, by the grace of God, he was prayed and fasted for 4 months. God was completely on his side. The king was like, yeah, sure, go ahead. Right? It's a huge deal. Just want to make that clear. So they left. Left the town of Persia to go to visit their homeland. And when they arrived, when Nehemiah and his friends arrived, they surveyed the city. How many of you guys have been to Detroit? To the ruins of Detroit, to the parts that look a little scary and sad? Yeah. It was probably, the visual imagery probably honestly reminds me of a lot like Detroit in some areas. And that's Detroit is flourishing in a lot of really cool ways. It's not all of Detroit. Detroit has a bad rep. I'm from Southern California, I know. But honestly, I remember when I first moved here, my family was like, you're moving to Detroit? Are you crazy? They had no idea that Detroit is huge for one, and that there were a lot of pockets that were flourishing and growing. So I can imagine for Nehemiah, they didn't have TV back then, so they didn't get like an example of what a ruined city would look like. So in our age, it's seeing something on TV and actually visiting it in real life. It's a big deal. You feel the poverty and the sadness when you step into certain areas of Detroit. So he gets there, he surveys the city, and he actually doesn't tell anybody of his plan until Nehemiah 2, verse 17. He gathers the nobles, the priests, and everyone together to talk about what God has placed on his heart. He says, you see the trouble we are in. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace. You see, the biggest trouble Jerusalem faced was their lack of a wall. In Michigan, Southern California, everyone has backyards. Out here, it's like people who have backyards means they're trying to keep their dog in the fence. That's probably about it. Very few people actually have fences around their property. But in those days, if there was not a wall, it meant that they were more frequent for attacks because the wall was their last line of defense from intruders. So a city without walls meant that they were not safe. And that is what motivated Nehemiah. He remembered stories of Jerusalem as a beautiful place, and he knew that it was the land that God gave to his people. But that was nothing like the place that he saw before him. He saw a place that needed serious help, and people needed safety. But you know what he didn't do? He didn't let this huge mess paralyze him from moving in the right direction. Instead, he came up with a plan, and it all boiled down to a one-point goal: build a wall. So Nehemiah saw the problem. The city was destroyed. The solution: restore Jerusalem to the city it once was. Starting point: build the wall. Who's going to lead this? Him. So I'm not sure if you guys have ever been a leader in any of your projects at school or ever had to lead a team, but it is a lot of work trying to get humans to do something. Real talk. You have to cast a vision that is so good that they're like, yes, I want to be a part of that. And that was what Nehemiah had to do. He went from being a cupbearer to now leading a team of people to build a wall that's going to protect their city, that's going to restore it back to what it once was. He saw the project, and it wasn't too big in his eyes. You know why? Because he had God on his side. He knew it was possible, and he wasn't asking the people to do everything, to fix everything. He was asking them to fix something: the wall. So a modern-day example of this is what we see going on in Detroit right now. I moved here February 2013, and I remember being paralyzed by what I actually saw in Detroit. But the coolest thing that I have seen in the past 4 years of being here is how much that it's grown. People are restoring schools. They're putting millions of dollars into the school system out there. They are building neighborhoods. They're bringing to life Detroit. The inner city is now flourishing. They have all of their sports arenas now in one area, which is completely rad. Let's just focus on that. A lot of major cities do not have that. It is flourishing in some really great ways, and if we look at the positive, then the snowball effect is, you know what? It's going to keep branching out. It's going to keep getting better. So maybe Detroit is part of a passion of yours. You should definitely partner with other people who are already making it thrive, or start your own project. This is an example of how one move can snowball into an even bigger move. And there's so many examples. World Vision, there was a team of runners that ran in the Detroit Free Press Marathon, a half marathon or a full marathon, and they ran for clean water. And they raised I think it was $1.3 million, or not million, $1,000. I don't remember what it was. The number was big. But they ran for people to have a fresh start and have clean water, so they don't have to spend their days walking back and forth to just get one basic need. So I want to tell you guys about the ending of Nehemiah. I think it's really important that you actually read the story of Nehemiah. I know we do little clips here, and Steve's going to be talking about it next week as well, but there's one verse that I want you to look at, and it's Nehemiah 6:15. When all our enemies heard about this wall, all the surrounding nations were afraid and lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work has been done with the help of God. They completed this project, and it made everybody else become extremely fearful, and like it says in here, lose their self-confidence. Because as you dive deeper into the book of Nehemiah, you'll read about all of the trials that they face, all of the ways that people are trying to bring them down and help them to not achieve their goal. But because God was on their side, and Nehemiah continued to step away and to pray and to give these people hope, they were able to complete the wall and restore it back to what it once was. Nehemiah stepped out and let God step up. He did the immediate in hopes that his dream for the city would be realized later. And the people inside the new walls obviously noticed. The people in the surrounding nations noticed. And everyone recognized that Nehemiah was with him. So how do we do this? How do we become a Nehemiah? How do we step out and let God step up? Maybe you've never thought of yourself as someone extraordinary, or incredible, or wonderful, or courageous, or strong. Maybe maybe you see yourself as not playing a key role in something that's really big. Maybe your ideas seem so big that you don't even know where to start. But you do know that you're supposed to do something. So here at Life Church, we have several opportunities for you to serve. Justin talked about a couple of them in our announcements today, and I really want to recap those and pretty much tell you that you need to do this. We have our Geared service project every single month, and Geared is our way of giving back to our community and allowing our students to give back. So once a month is a different project. So if cleaning up leaves is not your thing like we're doing on Saturday, I want to challenge you to show up to at least one. Casey Bolton, I'm not sure where she's at in here. She had perfect attendance last year. She went to every single Geared. She gave up one Saturday morning every single month of the school year to serve other people. There were several other students that were there. I don't want to make you feel left out, but she had perfect attendance, so I'm going to give it to her. But seriously, you guys, people call you guys the next generation. And it makes me mad because you know what? You guys got 2 hands, 2 feet, and a brain that works, and you are the now. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. You are supposed to be serving now. You're in the most selfish stage of your life, let's be honest. You got your parents doing a lot of the hard work for you. If you have jobs, then you kind of know the feeling of adulting a little bit. But your bills are paid, you got food in the fridge, you got a bed to sleep in. So why aren't you serving other people? So Geared is a way that you can do that. The second thing I have for you, we have over 1,000 people, churched and unchurched, showing up for Trunk or Treat. I believe what's the date on that? It's October 28th. Okay. You guys, we need people to help man the bounce houses and to maybe help out with the petting zoo or help people take out pizza boxes to the trash. Those are not big jobs at all, but your face being there, your smiling, beautiful, amazing faces and your energy is a huge impact, especially for a lot of people who never get to feel any kind of love of Christ in their lives. So you need to be there. If your family's gonna be there and your siblings are gonna be walking around, going through the candy line, you need to be serving in some way, shape, or form. And if I see you huddled in a circle, I'm probably gonna look at you super funny. It's gonna happen. It'll be with love, a little bit, but. And the last thing I have too, you guys, our big church services, we have so many service opportunities for you. I could see Colby serving donuts in the cafe or serving coffee, or I could see maybe Sarah Bullock greeting people in the name tag, or Cora, or Lillian, or Sydney. Grace, I could see all of you guys being the greeters at the front door to big service, writing those name tags, sitting at the cafe. You guys are the now. And if all of us were to contribute into our congregation in some way and be the actual hands and feet of Jesus, we'd be unstoppable. So I seriously want to challenge you to do that. See me, see Justin, see Katie, see Steve, Sabrina, Liz, any of the adult leaders in here want to see you flourish. So maybe I want to take this a step further. If you have a big dream that you want to accomplish, here's 4 practical steps that we can put your dream and your goals into action. And it could be something small like getting your grades up. Maybe that's big to you guys, but all the way to starting a project that could provide clean water for people. So the first thing we have to do is we're going to think. And everyone say think. That's number 1. Let your mind think about some of the places that need help, the people in your lives, the places, circumstances, and name an area where you've always wanted to help, but you felt like you could never make a difference. Everybody say 2. Next thing we're going to do after we think is we're going to talk. We are going to let somebody else know about our plan so that we can have accountability and we can have someone hearing us and encouraging us. And after we think and after we talk, what are we going to do? Put the slide up. Let's see. Plan. Yay! We're going to think, we're going to talk, and we're going to plan. What is one step that you can take towards your goal? Write it down or type it in your notepad on your phone. Think small. Nehemiah dreamed of restoring Jerusalem, but he knew that the wall had to be built first. In order to get to the wall, he had to ask the king. He took steps and he planned. So we're going to think. We're going to talk. We're going to plan. Now what are we going to do? Move! Yay, we're going to move, take a step. Those things all mean the same thing. The first step, you guys, it may feel or seem insignificant, but I promise you, it's important. The next small steps matter. If you are doing something small, bigger things will happen. The example that comes to my head is like American Idol, when some people come in and the judges say, you know what, you're just not ready yet. You need to practice more, work harder. And they go back and they actually stick to it. They practice, they try, and then they try out again and maybe they get on there. There are some people that actually do not have the gift of singing, so they shouldn't do it. They shouldn't be practicing anyways. But there are certain people that have the gift and put in the time and the effort, and they get somewhere with it. So I'm going to bring this home. We call it a landing. I'm going to call David out here. You guys, I would absolutely love to see more Nehemiahs in this world. And I believe that each and every single one of you are a Nehemiah in some way, shape, or form. Dreams do not just appear. Often, our biggest dreams that are laid on our heart are from God. He puts that in us. That desire to belong and to have purpose, that comes from Him and only Him. He wants you to succeed, and He wants to see you do incredible things, but it starts with the small things. The research paper, your grades, those friendships that are broken, that is how you get to those bigger things. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed that you never take action, that you never actually take a step in that direction. Start with one step, knowing that it will get you somewhere closer to the dreams and goals that you have. We need more Nehemiahs in this world, in our communities, in our schools, in our houses. Step out and let God step up. Will you pray with me? Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this incredible place that we get to worship you in. There are so many other youth groups out there that only have 3 students showing up. They're at the baby, the infant stage of growing in their youth ministry. And Lord, we have 150 people that show up here every Wednesday and 100 people that show up at the mix on Sundays, Lord. That is because of you. And I know that you have created each and every single one of these students to be like Nehemiah, to step out of their fear, of their doubt, of their worry and their anxiety, and step up into who you have created them to be. I pray that they don't leave here unchanged, that they desire to have a real and authentic relationship with you. And if they're at the first stage of truly committing themselves to you, Lord, I invite them to say this prayer with me. Father, I have been lost. I have been running in circles trying to figure out what to do with my life. And now I know that all I have to do is to surrender it to you, to trust that you are going to make something beautiful out of me. And just like that song, I know that I'm a sinner. But I know that you have something incredible planned for me, and you want me to do better each day. We love you, Lord. Thank you for your Son, for his sacrifice, and for the chance that we get to start fresh today. It is in your glorious Son's name that we pray all of these things. Amen.